All right, welcome back in person. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all and feel your presence. We're going to do a quick call to order. That's our call to order. We're going to do introductions. If everybody can go around and state your first and last name into your microphone for attendance.
Jennifer Truman.
Sarah Prado.
Nathan Spencer.
Tallulah Omokaye.
Karen Ringe.
Joshua Gill.
Thank you for that. We also need to approve, review and approve our June and July minutes. So if anybody would like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
All right, it's been approved and properly seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Are there any, we have a couple additions to the agenda. Are there any additions from the authority? Anything else anybody wants to talk about? All right. So the couple additions that we need to add to the agenda are our retreat dates. So we have a retreat and orientation for new members coming up, and since the majority of the new board are new members that need to be orientated. We need to discuss whether or not we're going to continue meeting in person or shift back to virtual meetings. I know City Council is going virtual on Tuesday, so they're giving us the option. However, we can't do a hybrid, if I understand correctly. We can't do some in person and some virtual, so we just need to make a decision on where we want to go moving forward. I'm not sure if that decision has to be made today.
I would think, generally speaking, we need to know at least a week in advance so that we can do our public notice of meeting.
Okay, but that is a discussion to add to the agenda. Also, there are meeting date conflicts for September, the September 9th meeting. There's a Downtown Raleigh Alliance meeting that same day, and I know some of the authority members are a member of that, so it may conflict our quorum for that meeting. So we just need to discuss who's gonna, if we will have quorum that day, and who's going to the Downtown Raleigh Alliance meeting. Also, the November 11th meeting is in conflict with a holiday, so we need to change the date for our November 11th meeting. Cool? Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. So let's jump to it. We have one action item. We'll move those, the additions to our, right before our committee reports, and then we'll jump into the reports. All right, so we have one action item, the Go Raleigh seating restrictions. I know that we have some interest from some of our ridership for us to go ahead and open up the buses back to full capacity because we've had to have some missed stops and things like that because we're, restricting how many people get on the bus. But I know David wants to talk to us a little more about that.
All right, thank you. I've got Mr. David Walker. I think he's got a brief presentation that he's going to step through that he did at the committee. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. David Walker, and we just wanted to bring this to you today. We brought it to the Finance and Policy Committee on last week. Unfortunately, we didn't have a quorum, so we're bringing it today as a staff action item. As everyone is aware, last year during the initial months of the pandemic, we did restrict seating on our Go Raleigh buses. And we also closed the front door due to the suspension of fares in order to protect the drivers because at that point we did not have driver barriers on board the buses. So this is our current situation. We've got approximately 50% of the seats on each bus marked off with these signs. And we have recently started receiving some complaints from citizens. I believe even one of our board members has brought it up once or twice about having issues with being passed up by buses due to them being full. The public comment that we did receive that's been presented to the chair is actually about this topic as well. So just be aware of that. We do have limited capacity right now to insert extra buses into our system due to the driver situation. Fortunately, knock on wood, we're still not at a point where we're suggesting any service reductions, such as Durham and Go Triangle have had to do, but we're still not in good shape either with our driver situation. So it makes it very challenging when we do have buses that fill up to be able to insert that extra capacity. We have had a few incidences where we've had some conflict at the back door of the bus as we start seeing our ridership increase. You've got more people trying to get off the bus while others are trying to get on the bus. Typical flow is in the front door, out the back door, and now we've got that two-way action at the same place, and we have had a few incidences due to that. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention. We did a quick survey among our local transit agencies and then also across the state. So I'm going to present a little bit of information on that. And it looks like we lost our screen there. I've got mine. There we go. All right. So currently today, Go Raleigh, Go Triangle, and Go Cary all still have restricted seating, and all three have the front doors closed. The only exception to that is Go Cary. Actually, the majority of their fleet are the smaller vans, similar to our Go Raleigh Access vans, and those only have one door, so they do have front door usage on the majority of their service over in Go Cary. So far, Triangle and Cary, neither one have the ridership concerns that we're starting to see, so the seating restrictions is not a big issue for them yet. However, in June, if you have reviewed the performance reports that were provided, we're at almost 70% or 68% actually of our pre-COVID ridership in the month of June. So we're coming back, and it's coming back fairly strong. So the seating restrictions is starting to be more and more of an issue for us. Also in the Triangle, we talked to Go Durham, Chapel Hill, and NC State University, and all three of these systems have removed all seating restrictions, and all but Chapel Hill are now using the front door. And Chapel Hill does plan to open their front doors this fall as the semester students, for fall semesters restarts and students are returning. And around the state, again, Charlotte, Katz, they lifted their seating restrictions in June, and they've been using their front door since April, May timeframe. Greensboro removed both of their restrictions earlier this summer, and Wave, and although it's not listed here, Asheville Transit have removed all of their seating restrictions, and they're all using their front door. So we're not presenting this to say we need to tag along, but to let you know that we have held off as long as we felt that we could. Our ridership is getting to a point where it is becoming problematic. Passengers are being left behind and having to plan basically twice the amount of time to make a trip as what they normally would or should have to, due to the potential for being passed up. So again, quick recap. Most agencies have already removed their seating and opened their front doors. We have a limited supply of drivers to insert extra capacity. Our ridership has continued to increase, month over month over the last year. Masks are still required on board the bus, and our drivers are also required to wear a mask, and that is the number one preventative measure to getting COVID per CDC guidelines. So we will continue to enforce that. And I mentioned the driver barriers earlier, but we did get driver barriers installed in all of our buses late last year, so that's another layer of protective measure for the bus operators. And Mr. Gill asked at the committee meeting last month about what a snapshot of ridership might look like as far as people wearing their mask. And so we did a random check of 15 buses between, I believe the time was 11:50 a.m. and a little bit after noon. We've got the ability to actually dial into a bus's camera and take a snapshot. And we took a snapshot of the front camera that's facing the back, and then there's one kind of mounted in the center facing further to the back to give you a better picture of the people in the rear of the bus. During that time frame, on those 15 buses, there were 61 riders on board that we were able to fully see and be able to determine if they had a mask on. All 61 people had a mask, which we were glad to hear. 58 of those were wearing it properly, and 3 were not. So 3 had it down either off their nose or down below their chin. So statistically, 95% were wearing their mask appropriately, and 100% at least did have a mask. So, we feel like we've got pretty good usage, and they're doing what they're supposed to do and having their mask with them. We did a similar spot check earlier during the pandemic, and we saw pretty similar numbers. I don't know what the exact number was on that one, but the usage was in the 90 percentile. So we feel comfortable that the people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and wearing their masks. So the recommended action, we're actually bringing it in two parts for you to consider. And so the first part would be to take action to remove the seating restrictions on Go Raleigh buses. Due to the increasing ridership, we need that extra capacity so that everybody can ride that wants to ride. And then the second action to consider would be to reopen the front door to reduce that conflict that we're seeing at the rear door for persons both entering and exiting at the same time. So with that, I'll take any questions that you may have or open the floor to discussion.
Madam Chair, I have a question if I might.
Yes,
I didn't see in the presentation, has staff consulted any public health experts to understand whether there's, whether we're good to go with this or not? Like, I'm not a public health expert, so demand is great, and I want that to be a thing, but if demand means we're also leading people to get sicker, then that's not great.
We've not done any outreach that I've not, and none that I'm aware of, specifically to public health agencies. I did go on the CDC website and just double check that the usage of a mask is still the number one preventive measure for contracting, to prevent you from contracting COVID.
I have a question. Has there been any discussion about people just getting on the bus at the front and just exiting at the back, so that people aren't going to run into each other? Is that a possibility? Is that useful? Maybe not. So that there's a regular flow, kind of like at the grocery stores when
That's
they've
the
got.
typical flow.
Yes.
That's always been what's been enforced when the front door was open.
Yeah. During normal times, obviously everybody has to enter at the front door because typically they
Right.
would be paying a
Right.
fare. And generally, people exit to the back door. That's not 100% of the time the case.
You can still exit from the front, though.
Right. That's what I'm saying is, so generally they exit from the back, but if you're sitting right up front and you want to jump out the front and there's nobody else standing there to get on the bus, it is permissible. But we could make that a follow-up policy to just make sure and ask for folks to always exit at the back of the bus.
But also because now the riders are used to getting on in the back, so they still might expect to do that. Does that make sense? So, in other words, I don't even know if you can just open the front door.
Well, certainly
And I
that's
don't know if
typically
it's
the case.
useful,
When a driver would pull up to a bus stop, if nobody has rang the bell to exit, they don't open the back door. They only open the front door to let people in.
So moving forward, would it make sense for people to only get on in the front and only exit from the back?
That if the board passes the second action item there to open the front doors, that would be the return to what we would propose, is that you always only enter through the front door.
Okay.
The back door would not open unless somebody wanted to get off. And typically the drivers manage that. If there's people standing at the bus stop, they pull up, the front door is at where those people are standing, and they jump in. They're not going to run to the back door to get in if they're standing at the front door already.
Okay. Thanks.
So one question, if we do move forward with lifting the seating restrictions, is it possible to still have some kind of signage to keep people apart when the bus is not at capacity? So still have suggested locations where people should and should not sit?
Sure. I mean, we can come up with some creative new signage to display on board the bus. That wouldn't be a problem at all.
But I would also echo what Nathan said, because now there's the new Delta variant, so all those restrictions were lifted when it was just the one strain, and so now it feels like everything might be going back to, stricter policies again. So I think that's something we should keep in mind as well.
Yeah, like I said, adding, swapping out the signage that we have today, suggesting that you continue to, socially distance on board the bus where you're able to do that. That's not a problem at all.
I was just going to say, I think that, having experienced being left behind by the bus and been late to meetings because of it, I think that we need to get back to allowing the people that fit on the bus to be on the bus. And also when you're traveling not as a single passenger, the social distancing signage is difficult. So I'm frequently traveling with 1 or 2 kids, and we're all piling into the paired seats against the signage, which makes it difficult for other people to sit where the signed seats are, but they are trying to social distance. So I think allowing the flexibility of passengers to self-manage is a good call. I'm a little bit more torn about the front door because I don't want there to be conflicts at the back door, but I feel like it is protecting the drivers to have the front door not used. And I think that we would be able to still protect the drivers and provide more increased ridership by just doing the first action right now.
I would say that staff would be very open to that. The seating is needed. That's a known. The reopening the front door would certainly help, but we don't feel that's a critical item today. So if you wanted to, pass one and hold on the other, that would certainly be okay. We're still not collecting fares, so that you don't have that critical need to enter at the front door. But that has created some issues, some confrontations.
It's hard to see when you're getting off the bus whether someone's trying to get on because of the back door is not designed for you to see out of that way.
Right.
Madam Chair, I'm wondering if the drivers have an opinion. I think Jennifer raises a really good point about continuing to keep, because on most of the buses, most of the time, it's not full capacity. I mean, we all know it's peak hours in certain routes. So the drivers might actually feel more comfortable not having the front door open.
One of my questions to ask if we've engaged the operators about their preference for opening the front door or not.
I have not. I think Byron may have had some conversations with them, and I think it's kind of been mixed. Some would like to open it and some would not. But I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Byron.
Afternoon, everyone. Madam Chair. Yes, Mr. Walker is exactly correct. The response has been mixed from the operators on both issues. So I think that more likely than not, the seating issue is much more favorable to the city's stance. The front door issue is probably a little less favorable to the city's stance.
Thank you. And so if we do decide to go back to full capacity, have we come up with procedures to watch or measure if there's any increase in infection? And then how will we quickly scale back if we have to?
We certainly can continue to monitor that as we receive any information from Go Raleigh staff about positives. We've been tracking that over the full term of the pandemic, so we would see that if that were to happen.
And because this seems like it may be something of a new normal for us with COVID, are there any technologies that you all are considering for the buses to help clean the air with the riders on it?
So Byron and I actually a general manager for Go Raleigh, but we have had that discussion. There's a couple of different technologies. Certainly, I think on a national trend right now is air filtration systems, and we are looking at those advanced air filtration systems, how we might be able to deploy those in the future. There's also light technology, probably not as favorable as the air filtration systems currently, but that's also out there and might be something that we could at least test. But we are looking at both of those currently because, as you stated, this seems like something that's going to unfortunately be around for a while. And so we need to have a long-term strategy of how to be safe and provide the best environment possible. So certainly those two technologies, we're open to anything else that anybody has an idea about. We'll certainly look into it. But those are two specific items that we're looking into.
And are those something that we can use CARES funds to pilot on some of our buses?
Those would be eligible pretty much under all of our programs because they would be considered as capital maintenance items. So yes, most definitely that as well as our regular formula funds.
On that same note, what about opening a window? I know there's a lot of research out of like New York and the public school system that simply opening the window and the increased ventilation rate makes a big difference. Like, can we do that in the meantime if we're raising the seating restrictions?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is I think that's a good idea. My hesitancy is saying that we would need to look at that is that a bus is able to reduce or to bring down the ambient temperature in a bus by about 15 degrees or so. So when you're 90 degrees outside, it can bring it down to about 75. When you start opening windows when it's in the like 95 or 98 degrees like today, it's really hard for that bus to keep up. So then you have to figure out, is it better to have, the existing, we still have filtration systems, they're just not the advanced filtration systems. Is it better to be cool and have the windows closed or hot with them open? So we would have to actually probably look into that a little bit, but certainly something that we can look into if the board would like us to.
I don't have any problem with either one of these. I do have a little bit of an issue, and I hate to harp on this, but the fact that we're being asked to make a decision that we don't have the understanding, and the researching filtration systems is good, but going and looking at transportation suggestions is different than asking for medical advice. We have 3 major hospitals in this area. We have an amazing amount of medical professionals. I would love it if staff reference one and help and just get us some information. There's a lot of pent-up frustration in this because as parents, we're being asked to make a lot of medical decisions that we're not qualified to do. So forgive me on that, but I would feel really much more comfortable. I'm happy to move forward on these, but that staff is pursuing medical advice on what to do and how to do it correctly, please.
Understood. Generally speaking, I mean, right now this is within guidelines of CDC and US DOT policy. So we're certainly within their guidelines of what they would require of us and of transit agencies nationally. But point well taken. We'll be happy to reach out, and we can report that back if just a head nod from the board, and we'll be happy to make sure we do reach out and bring information back, and we can do that at a committee level as well as a full board level in September.
I think that it'll help at least to ease the mind of our ridership because not everybody's gonna, as much as the riders are being left behind, they still want to be safe, and I think it'll help them feel a little safer that we're taking this measure and we consulted at least a medical professional, even though we're moving forward.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other questions around this?
Do we need to vote on each of them separately, 1 and 2?
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and start the process of voting if there's no other questions. Can we make a motion for the first
I'll motion.
item? All right, any second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. Please state aye if you are for going back and removing the restrictions and going back to full capacity of our buses, and nay if you are not. Are you for removing the restrictions on our buses?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we voting? Aye.
We're used to you calling our names, so we don't know what to do now.
I know, right? We kind of stuck. I'm like, should I go? I thought about that. Like, should I go around calling names? All right. So the motion has passed that we will remove our restrictions and go back to full capacity on our buses. And for the second option, please, can we get a motion to vote or pass on the second option?
A motion to vote, not to pass.
All right, it's been moved.
I'll second the vote. I
All right,
mean,
it's
the
been
motion.
seconded. Making a motion to vote on it.
Okay.
Moved and properly seconded. Please state aye or nay if you are for, okay. Action to reopen the front door to reduce conflict at the rear door for persons entering and exiting at the same time. If you are for us doing that, please state aye.
Aye.
If you are not for us doing that, please state nay.
Nay.
Nay. The nays have it, so the second motion isn't passed. So we will go forward with removing the restrictions and go back to full capacity on our buses, but we will only keep it to back door entrance and exit.
And And just to sum, what I heard from the board, I think people were all nodding, was definitely look into the air filtration. I mean, airplanes have that, right, and dentist offices, and et cetera. And also look into the idea, exploring of just opening windows in the meantime. I mean, they don't even have to be full. It can just be a couple partially. We're all doing that in, our vehicles and things, so.
The doors obviously open and close on a pretty regular basis, so you do have fresh air coming in through, into the bus as people are boarding and exiting. So you have that. So by all means, the window issue can be looked into as well.
Can we have an update on air filtration ideas by our next meeting?
Sure, we can do that. Would you like for that to come back to a committee or just bring it straight back to the board?
Can we do both? We have conversation, and I would guess it would go to policy and finance to have a conversation around what different technologies we can have, on the buses, what's feasible, and then bring it to the board for us to vote.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that is that action item. We're going to jump into the,
Sorry, before you move on, I just did a quick Google search, and MIT Medical has something about public transit, and it said, depending on the age and type of vehicle, air is completely replaced between 11 and 28 times an hour, or every 5.5 minutes at a minimum. That's a higher air changeout rate than most commercial office buildings, schools, or even hospitals. But even so, viral particles could continue circulating for a number of minutes, making mask wearing a crucial safety factor.
okay, so it sounds like us keeping the airflow on the buses and the cleansing mechanisms that we have are good for now. We don't necessarily have to open the windows. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, but I also, there's an email address here that I could forward to y'all, that you can they say they're asking for questions. If anyone has questions about public transportation, MIT Medical will answer your questions.
Yeah, if you can forward that, that would be great. And what I heard was it sounds like compared to an office building, it's already being exchanged much more frequently than it is in this room today.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, we're gonna jump back really quickly to our board member subcommittee assignments. I'm gonna do a brief description. We've gone ahead and assigned everybody to committees so we can have like full capacity to make all those other decisions. I'll do a brief description of each committee, and then I'll read who's where, and if we have any questions, we can go there and then move to our additions to the agenda. Wait, I'm sorry, before I do that, do we have any public comments? It's 4:02. All right, I know we have one public comment, and this is from a Joanne Blumenfield, who is in favor of opening the buses to full capacity. So that is one of the public comments that we do have. All right, so for the marketing committee formulates annual marketing program for the Transit Authority, approval and monitors program execution by staff. That committee is chaired by Ms. Karen Range. The people that are on that committee are Brian Burnett, myself as a member of all the committees, and we've added LaPonda Edmondson. The strategic planning route committee studies questions dealing with routes, services, passenger amenities. The chair of that committee is Mr. Nathan Spencer. Sarah Prado is on that committee, as well as myself, and we've added Ms. Jennifer Truman to that committee. The finance committee reviews all budget financial issues referred from the Transit Authority, Marketing Committee, and Route Committee. This committee also studies questions and policies related to Accessible Raleigh Transportation Program, the ART. That committee is chaired by Mr. Joshua Gill. On that committee is also myself, and we've added Lawrence Carter. He is vision impaired, and I think that that'll be useful moving forward to make sure that we are making sure our buses stay accessible. Also, we have a new authority member named Jennifer Haverstan. and we've added her to that committee too. So at this point, the marketing committee has 4 people, route committee has 4 people, and the finance committee has 4 people. Any questions? Okay, cool. So we're gonna jump to the first addition to our agenda, which is the retreat dates. So we have a retreat coming up in September, mid to late September. Of course, it's gonna be our retreat and orientation. We're looking to do it all in one day. So David has some questions for you all as far as the dates to make sure that everybody's is convenient for everyone.
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair. I think the first overarching question for planning purposes is the board interested in an in-person retreat, which is beneficial for strategic planning, I would say, but I also know that things are changing a bit again. So we'll have to think carefully about that. Also, we were looking at the end of August, but now we're looking more like the 3rd week in September, 2nd or 3rd week, sometime after the 15th, between the 15th and the end of September. I thought I had some alternate dates here, but what we can do is we can get those out to the board in a doodle poll tomorrow. But we do have several dates that we know we have. While we have not settled on a facilitator as yet, we do have some dates that we know that they are available. So at least we can start choosing and narrowing down a date. But we can get that out. Might be more efficient to get that out in a doodle poll to the full board tomorrow. But also today, just wanted to generally say the format that we're looking at is a one-day event, probably a couple of hours in the morning as an orientation to Go Raleigh and really transit staff and transit within the transportation department for the city of Raleigh. So we'll kind of review our organizational structure as well as other items associated with the transportation department at large. So that'll be the first couple of hours. I would think that that would be good for everyone, but certainly if someone has attended an orientation in the past, it's probably going to be similar, probably not exactly the same, but it'll be similar to things that we've done in the past. But certainly sometime before lunch, we would transition over to a more strategic planning type of environment where we would have an agenda associated with really looking at what are the transit authority's priorities for the next 12 to 18 months, and really much further than that. This board historically has looked out at least 5 years, so really on a 5-year horizon, what are the things that we need to make sure that we're implementing and thinking about. We would just go through that exercise. Again, we'll get that doodle poll to the board, and please let me know if you have any questions as we get that out.
Thank you.
Madam Chair? Should the chairs of the committees be thinking about long-term goals and starting to think about some of that, or should to have conversation at the retreat, or is that something that you want to provide instruction for either beforehand or figure out at the meeting?
I think it'll be useful for the chairs to consider it, especially since at our retreat, they're normally engaged where we all add our input, and it just gives an opportunity for you all to have some pre-thought, since you all have been able to lead most of the meetings and you know what's needed in those areas, but not in a space where you have to do anything extreme, just as a space of preparation.
Thank you.
As the board is aware, we are charged with, as Go Raleigh, with certain elements of the financially constrained Wake Transit 2030, transit plan. So we have that plan, which is financially constrained and names all of our objectives out to 2030. Those are items that we would present as part of the first part of the retreat, kind of the orientation. Hey, this is what we've, these are the items that are there for us as part of that Wake plan. I think the main thing that we really want to concentrate on is, what are the strategies to successfully implement those items, as well as what other priorities that might not be within that, those defined projects of the wake plan. What are those other elements that we need to try to find funding or resources or alignment with other agencies in order to accomplish. So, I think that's where hopefully we'll have that building block of the 2030 plan, but also what can we do above and beyond that as we move forward.
Thank you. Any other questions in regards to our retreat? So I guess we'll be waiting for you all to send us out that doodle poll for us to make the decision as far as the right date for the retreat. But how do you all feel about hosting this retreat in person versus virtually? As David said, I think an in-person retreat would be better. It helps us be a little more engaged, gets us in front of the computer, and we would keep the space like minimal with people, correct?
And we can hopefully find a very large space as well, so everybody can really space out. Not so large that you would have a hard time hearing each other, but certainly, large enough that there would be plenty of social distancing, and but still have a good retreat.
Yeah, and it's free lunch.
That's right.
So, all in favor of hosting the retreat in person, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, the ayes have it. We'll host our retreat in person. We'll just wait to hear from you all about the dates for that. All right, the next added item is our September meetings and committee meetings. Now, as we stated that we are needing to make a decision, not necessarily today, but it's something that we need to think about whether or not we want to move forward, keeping our meetings in person and coming back. That would be in this format in the chamber, just like this, or whether or not we want to go back to hosting our meetings virtually. We can't do a hybrid, so we can't say every other month we're going to do it virtually, right? We can't do that.
That's correct.
Okay, so we can't do a hybrid saying every other month we'll do it virtually, every other month we'll be in person. We kind of just need to make the decision and keep that rolling. Are you all for making a decision today, or would you all like some time to think about it? We just have to make the decision at least a week, right? Before the next
We would like it a little ahead of a week, but at a minimum a week, because we do have to make sure that we make our public notice for a quorum of the authority. Again, a week would be fine, but at least a week.
All right, let's have some discussion. All right.
For the committee meetings, when we're meeting in the conference room at the Go Raleigh or the Union Station, would it be possible to have, like, when I say hybrid, I mean some people in person, some people on the camera, because that's, like, I think it's well equipped to do that, and that's, like, y'all have been doing that where y'all are there. The people who can show up, and it's not really recorded anyway, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think the committees.
Yeah, can the committee meeting stay virtual?
Right.
It is my understanding that the chair and the body have the ability to determine whether they want to be in person or virtual. And the thing that is difficult that we can't do is a hybrid meeting where some board members are at the meeting and some are virtual, because then that's difficult for the public to understand exactly the interactions that are happening, and display that to the public, because we would have to just broadcast that in a virtual environment. But again, you could do this meeting virtual, this meeting in person. That is up to the chair and the body.
So just so I'm clarifying, we could do committee in person, committee virtually, authority in person. Could we do a every other month virtual meeting and every other month in-person meeting?
I have not seen anything that says you can't. Again, the only guidance I have received thus far is that it is up to the chair as well as the body to determine whether their meetings are virtual or in person.
Okay. We had another.
I just want to ask directly, is this determination coming from council or coming from the limitations of the law from the city's attorney office?
Currently, as it relates to boards and commissions, it's my understanding that this is, council did request that they all come back to in person after July 30. New guidance that we've received thus far is that they can make that decision on whether being virtual or in person. So there has not been a council meeting, so this would have been, I'm assuming, internal discussions with council. That is the guidance that we have received from the city thus far.
When we meet at Union Station, are those meetings recorded and posted anywhere?
Now, they are open to the public, so there could be members of the general public which could come and attend those.
So-
Under that scenario, we would allow them to view the meeting.
So if they're open to the public and it's not being recorded, my question is, would the interactions between the virtual participants and the in-person participants actually be difficult to comprehend if the audience is only in person?
Yeah, I'm not sure. The guidance we have so far is that the boards and commissions should choose whether to be in person or virtual, and a hybrid option, to my knowledge, was not provided.
Madam Chair, could we as a board request a reconsideration of that from the council?
Is that something we can do? Or is that the mandate, is they're saying we either have to be in person per meeting, virtual per meeting, we cannot do any hybrids?
That is the guidance that I have received so far. If you want me to request additional information, I'll be happy to request.
Wouldn't hurt. Wouldn't hurt to just clarify and see if they're willing, and asking. I mean, what Joshua was saying is a good question when it comes to the committee meetings. I think as far as the authority meetings, they have to be one way or the other. We should decide one way, but like you said, since the committee meetings they're virtual right now and out on the thing because they're open to the public, but they're not recorded like these are. So we would like more direction as far as our committee meetings are concerned. But what do you all think about just the preliminary
Personally,
conversation?
I would like more flexibility and the ability to hold a hybrid meeting. I think it's 2021, and I think that the ability for people to call into a meeting is not that difficult. And I think the council, with a current council member having COVID and needing to participate virtually in the change in the council meeting this week, perhaps gives them some perspective as to why that's an important opportunity for both public engagement and for us as a board to be able to meet and have the members that maybe couldn't be here in person but could have been here virtually today be part of the conversation.
Right, and that, just referencing the committee meeting, I think when you only have 4 members, we want to decrease the barriers as much as possible, because last meeting there was only 1 person.
Right.
And I don't think that even counts as a committee meeting at that point, so.
Conversation with yourself.
We've had a lot of those, even virtually, where it's just one person, so it's,
So we are waiting to get word back, because I think the best option would be us be able to do a hybrid, right? But if they're saying that we can't, what are your thoughts?
well, one question I have is, I'm just looking here today with the staff. I mean, the staff are all here, sitting much closer than we have the privilege of being apart up here, and what do the staff want to do? Because they're the ones who have to be here for all the meetings, and
But they're also close at the office too. Aren't y'all close with each other at the office too? No? Y'all far away from each other? Everybody's a mad distance?
I don't.
What are y'all thoughts?
I don't know.
Any thoughts? Y'all don't care? Y'all cool with this? Everybody's fine right now?
Well, I'm just saying, because the decision we make affects the staff as well. That's my point.
Just as much as we want the operators and input, we want staff input too.
This meeting is being televised, so they all had the option to sit at their desk and watch it.
Ah.
Woohoo!
Oh, they love us. Y'all missed us. We missed y'all too.
Morgan's rolling her eyes.
Okay, so, what would y'all think though? Would you all are y'all more comfortable being virtual?
I'm comfortable,
Y'all
from my
comfortable
perspective,
being-
I'm comfortable with this meeting, the RTA meeting being in person. I would very much like if it can't be hybrid, the committee meetings to be virtual.
I agree. Anybody else?
I'm comfortable with everything just being in person at this point. I think it makes me feel more able to follow the conversation and hear things more clearly. It's hard over the computer, especially after hours of conversation. but that's just my perspective. I'm open to virtual as well. I'm not opposed to it.
I'm very much open to in-person in this setting. I want to put my nudge to hybrid seems entirely possible and cool. But in person for board meetings seems reasonable.
Okay. The virtual for committee, you feel, or either way?
I need to think about that one, but probably virtual for committee meetings.
I'm leaning the same way, the virtual for the committee and in person for the board meetings. All that being said, we don't all know what's going to happen. You know, I am astounded at the number of new cases across the state. Fortunately, in Wake County, they're not as high as a percentage, but you know, we're all going to have to pivot if things get worse and reconsider. I mean, at this point, I think, you know, I really, it's just nice to be able to see everyone. It's easier to get work done in a pleasant way. But I think let's go ahead and, at least, if we have virtual committee meetings, it is one less point of contact, but we are sitting far apart and wearing masks.
So I agree. I think that us having the authority meetings in person is a good idea, and the committee meetings, because I also think it gives us a little more flexibility with the committee meetings instead of having to come here to this place twice a month. And like you said, it does get knocked down touch, and I think if we are going to be locked back up, us being able to stretch our legs for a little bit and be in person before that happens would be a good, I think, mental break for us all. So I think that's where we're leaning as an authority, meetings in person, virtual for committee meetings. But can we, when you send out the doodle poll for the retreat, can we make our decision at the retreat?
Yes.
And then we could just move forward in October with whatever decision we've made.
Well, we'll still have committees and RTA outside of retreat. So we'll still have to make that decision.
Well, RTA in September then would be in person.
That is correct.
And then let's say the committees in September will be virtual, and then we'll make our final decision at the retreat.
Sounds good.
I think that'll be convenient for everybody too.
Staff can plan around that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And on to our meeting conflicts. So our September 9th, our next month, RTA meeting is in conflict with the Downtown Raleigh Alliance. Is anybody here planning on going to that meeting? All right, so it's not a scheduling conflict, because we'll at least have quorum. And then we do have a scheduling conflict with November 11th with Veterans Day. So is there another day we can move that to?
Traditionally, we've gone to the third Thursday, but we would want you to look at your calendars. We can send out a separate doodle poll for that if you think that would be more appropriate. Or if you'd like to make the motion as a board today, that is fine as well.
The third Thursday is the 18th.
I make the motion that we move the meeting to the third Thursday in November, which is the 18th, which is the week before Thanksgiving.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. All for us moving our November RTA meeting to Thursday, November 18th. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So our November meeting will be moved to November 18th. We'll keep our September meeting as is. All right, and then that jumps us into our committee reports. So starting with Route. Nathan,
All right.
take it away.
So route was good. Sarah and myself sat down and talked with staff. A question had, Sarah, Jen, and myself. I apologize.
Okay.
All sat down. There was a question that came up at a Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance transportation meeting with regards to bus stop accessibility coming up along Blue Ridge. That's being looked at by staff. It's an area where I-440 is being widened. There's a bridge being put in, a pedestrian bridge also being put in. But as of yet, the bus stop in front of a state-owned property does not have continuous sidewalk to the rest of the pedestrian area. And so we're looking into it and trying to figure out how to resolve that. And it looks like for the moment it's not going to get resolved. The state is not. It's the responsibility of the state probably to take that on, but they're not going to immediately. The city would have to pay for the changes, which apparently are quite expensive. And there's talk about that property being renovated in the future due to the state maybe making some changes, so it would get done anyway at some point in the future. So Route's going to keep an eye on it, and we're going to continue to check in with staff about it. Other things that we discussed, the FY 2023 work plan for the Wake Transit Plan is coming down the pike, making sure that we're on top of the changes that Go Raleigh is requesting for monies, and making sure we're on target to keep things going. That's happening. It looks good. It does not look at this point down the line that there's going to be an issue with funding, which is great. The Wake Transit Plan performance measures review we discussed. There's talk of needing other ways to review it, but they are doing a survey based on ridership and on-time performance. Those things are suffering because of COVID. Every transit agency is having that, so we will see where that comes out. It's particularly affecting the Rollsville service, the 401X. The difficulty is it never really got to start. We sort of implemented it and then the pandemic hit. So it has been lacking to start since the beginning. That said, we're going to continue keeping an eye on it. There's not a whole lot that we can do, A, because of COVID, B, this service is really needed. It's really our the only reach into Rollsville with public transit from downtown Rollsville to downtown Raleigh. So from a jobs and access perspective, this is a lifeline for some. The bus plan for the Wake Transit Plan is being updated. We're watching that. They're bringing consultants on board. Two sort of highlighted things are the R line past its benchmarks that we had set February or before February that got implemented in February. It is showing that the economy is coming back, that people are using it, or using the area rather. So the talk is when to bring the R line back online. There's some discussion about bring it back for the IBMAs and then just keeping it going. So we're going to explore it. It may come back only, rather than 2 buses, 1 bus for the moment, while we're sort of coming back. That said, one thing that staff mentions every time we talk about the R line is that service everywhere is free right now without fares. So there's not like a specialty of the fact that you get to jump on the R line. The value of the R line is as a route right now. Hopefully the DRA will help with that. Lastly, it looks like every year, I should step back. Every year, Go Raleigh helps with the shuttles for the state fair. That's been a good opportunity to sort of get the word out that there's good transit. That said, because of driver shortage and because of the situation with COVID, we will not be providing service for the state fair this year. They will be chartering from the State Fair grounds folks will be chartering their own service. That said, I had suggested that we use this opportunity, as there probably will be some press about the fact that we're not doing it this year, as an opportunity to politely address the DMV about speeding up CDLs for bus drivers, because that's been a really big holdup in the driver shortage, is that the DMV has been slow on that, and because normal service doesn't affect the state any, they're not going to really care. But this is sort of their big thing. So if they're having to spend money, their own money on chartering buses, then it's going to be a reality check for them, and it's a good opportunity for us to shake them and say, listen, we'd love to do it, but we can't because you're not helping us. So, do any of the other committee members have thoughts, comments?
I think that the only other thing that we talked about with the state fair was just being clear about the routes that do currently go past the state
that's right.
fair, whether or not they get detoured or whether or not they would still be accessible. Let's be clear to our ridership, because there may be people that pick up their phone and ask Google how to take the bus to the state fair and take it there and maybe not get back because of a detour or things like that could happen. So I've just asked that we have some clearer marketing and operation stuff around that.
Yeah, and along that line, there was the comment about the buses that actually do service near the state fair were free, and so we didn't want them to be overwhelmed by riders trying to take a free bus versus one that might have been organized by a different
Yes.
city
That's a good point.
for a higher fare, yeah.
I have a couple questions. One is for the Rollsville Express, you probably said this, that would just be express at peak hours, morning and evening?
It hasn't changed, so it's still going to run as it's running.
They've shortened, they're using the smaller buses.
That's right. They're using the smaller buses. I apologize. They are going to go down to a van-sized bus, the access-size buses for the moment, and keep the regular service. The difficulty right now is that running the 30 or 40-foot buses is per hour is really upside down. So normally we're probably like $80 to $100 upside down when without fares. We're talking like significant amounts per hour ridership.
Okay.
So
And then I have a question about the R line. You said we might start it up for the IBMA. Would it make, was there discussion about starting it up before then so that people have some awareness that it's even started?
So, I'm sorry.
No.
So originally, we were only allowing the R line to go back for two special events, and the
The
IMBA.
The IMBA was one of them. So we weren't restarting it before then. They were going to be for those two specific conventions. So I'm assuming that we're talking
At the
about.
committee meeting, Mr. Walker had mentioned the driver shortage and them not knowing when they wanted to restart the R line. And so our suggestion was, if they wanted to delay it, let's not delay it past the IBMA, so that way it doesn't run and then stop running. If they're waiting to get more drivers for the R line, that was the suggestion.
Okay, so I think I missed something, because I thought you said that we have met the metrics that we laid out.
We have.
So have we started the R line back up?
No.
No, we were going to start it.
And now you're saying we're only doing it for special events?
No. So the
So-
question is, the R line, we finally met our matrices. Before we got there, I guess while we were getting there, we approved it at our last meeting to allow the R line to be used for those two conventions. Now they're saying, because this is the second conversation, saying that since we've met those matrices, do we want to go ahead and just open the R line back up?
And the idea basically being, since we've already approved it for these
The convention,
festivals
yeah.
back before it was open for business, instead of turning it on for the festival, then turning it off, and then turning it on at some point in the future, just keeping it on.
Once we
Okay.
turn it on for the first convention.
Yeah.
Okay, and
For the
but,
festival.
so Mike, so is there value in starting it before that event in September, just so that people are aware that it's going to be ongoing, that it's not just for the special events?
If-
That was really my.
If I can jump in real quick,
Please.
maybe I can give some clarity on it. We want to start it back as quickly as we can. So that's bottom line. We want to operate the R line at full service over the course of a week. It takes 6 drivers, and that's a big number in the middle of a driver shortage. And we're also starting our Glenwood package in September, which is another 4 to 5, maybe even 6 drivers. So what we're looking at is we definitely want to start the Glenwood package because we think that's very worthwhile. It's a new high-frequency network route. We think it can do good things fairly quickly. Our line is currently stopped, so delaying it a few more weeks, is not the best case scenario, but it's better to do that and make sure we've got enough drivers on board before we do start it. We're looking at potentially putting 1 bus on the street in September when we do this new service implementation. We've got a decent sized class in training right now, and we're going to wait and see how many of those actually graduate. Typically, training classes, if you get 60% of them that actually stick around, you're doing pretty good. So we know there's attrition in new hire classes. So we're just waiting to see what we come out of these training classes with. The comment about the IBMA we thought was a good idea. We know we're going to come back strong for that. That gives us an extra month of time to get those extra drivers in, and then if we come back from IBMA, and then just continue with the full service after that point. We hope to be able to do 1 bus in September, and that I think the start date is around the 15th. But we don't want to commit to that yet because we just don't know how many of those drivers are going to stay with us after training. That's just the big unknown. We can start a training class with 7 or 8 people, and if you come out with 5 at the end of it, you're doing really good. And that I was in operations for 14 years. That's typical.
Thanks.
So.
Any other questions about the route committee report? All right, thank you, Nathan. Very much. And the next committee report is policy and finance with Nathan.
Joshua.
Sorry. Joshua.
All right, I'm gonna bump the RFP process to the end because I think we've got a little presentation about that. So I'll just talk about the other things first. All right, so we're on the ADA Title VI update. So for the uninitiated, this is our new paratransit headquarters, finding a location for that. At present, we've found 2 sites, and this part was just getting input from the neighbors, essentially. So the one site, which is pretty close to the existing Go Raleigh site off of Pool Road, I believe, Pool Road, there's barely any residences around there, and they got 1 feedback, I think, and it was positive. It was from a local church that was excited to have the paratransit there. There's another site off of Sunnybrook, between Sunnybrook and 440, where they got a few more responses. How they got all these responses, they sent mailers to residents and tenants within a quarter mile with prepaid mailers for them to send their responses back. And then in addition to that, they did flyers at multifamily developments. It sounded like the majority of the comments were to do with traffic, worries about traffic. But there's one route that kind of like went through a neighborhood and then another route that didn't go through the neighborhood, and they just said we will not use the route from the facility to Sunnybrook that goes through the neighborhood. We'll use the other route. And yeah, and all of this is data for a final Title VI report about this paratransit headquarters that is still ongoing, and there's still many avenues for community engagement, as this is just one of the earlier pieces in the relocating of the paratransit headquarters. Questions? All right. The bus stop amenity policy review. So we recently, or within a year or 2 years, decreased the threshold for bus shelters down to 10 boardings per day, which was where the bench threshold was previously. So now we just need to decide where the bench threshold will be, and either bench or pedestal. But is it going to be 5 people? Is it going to be 8 people? So essentially, that's what that's about. And then I think that's it for that. I didn't feel comfortable making a decision as I was the only person at the meeting. So that's, I don't think that's an urgent action item, but that is something to keep on our radar and to start discussing. The financial reports and measures review, we're still not getting bus fares, so not much has changed there. And then for the RFP process, we had a presentation about the selection committee, which I thought was really interesting, and I would like to ask the staff to bring that forward to the meeting.
Hey, Joshua, before we discuss that, back to the bus stop amenity review. As we all might remember, there was a lot of press around putting in bus stops, and the staff moved fairly quickly to come up with a proposal. And I just was wondering if we're getting much feedback about that, positive or negative, about and can you remind us about how many
The pedestal seats?
the pedestal seats we installed?
The
Y'all-
pedestal seats, we put those on order, and what's the status?
They actually just came in within the last week or so we're working on getting those out in the field where we're able to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's about a 6-week, at least a 6-week lead on delivery.
Okay.
So they have just arrived, and we'll get those out as quickly as we can and start getting some feedback.
Okay.
And we have 2 different manufacturers. Yeah, so we do have 2 different types.
And David, how many are we going to be installing?
We bought 12. So we've got to find the right locations. I think the DHIC and RHA sites where we can put them, I think was either 5 or 6.
Okay.
5 or 6 will go to those RHA and DHIC sites.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
It's fine.
Are there tiers? Are we saying their shelter would be like, one group of boardings, benches, and then the stools? Or are the stools on the same space as the benches?
So I think of it this way. So anything with 10 or greater boardings would qualify for a shelter. That's full ADA accessibility, sidewalk extensions, whatever is needed for that site. We need to come up with a threshold for the bench, and we do have statistics on what that looks like across the system. And so we can discuss that again at the next committee meeting. And then I think about the other seats as really a filler for something that would fall below a bench, but also could be used as an interim for a bench or a shelter if, while we're designing those, because those facilities have to be designed and we have to get encroachment agreements. But that allows us to put something out very quickly, at least to get seating there at a minimum. And then we come back to those sites with a fully improved ADA accessible, not that those aren't ADA accessible, but at least, a full site for a shelter or a bench. And again, also at those locations where we think that, a bench or a shelter under this policy might not meet policy, if we can legally put that pedestal seat at that location, then we would certainly want to do that as well. So hopefully that helps.
It did, thank you.
I just had a couple of thoughts along that line, if you don't mind me sharing. One is I think that for the extra pedestal seats that we have right now, we should install them in the places that qualify for a shelter but won't receive one for 6 months because of the design process. I think that makes sense as the place to pilot them. I think anywhere where we pilot them should have a sign and a link to a survey where we ask people what they think of them as a marketing and feedback tool. And I also think that it is highly possible that it's legal to place the pedestals in sites that don't have sidewalk access on stops that are just a sign. I think that there are many exemptions within the ADA regulations to allow that. And I think that we should really explore spots that for the pedestals where we using them as something that is acceptable to place in a non-completely ADA compliant stop.
I like that, I agree.
Sorry, that was a lot of thoughts.
No, it makes sense, because we do have
I
a
couldn't,
lot.
I was out of town, so I couldn't virtually show up at Josh's meeting to give the thoughts at the committee meeting, so.
Because we do have a lot of stops where there's just a sign, and I know I was talking about that.
Many,
Like, people have
yes.
to sit in the grass and all of that, so we want to just make it comfortable.
Those are obviously locations without sidewalk, and we do have many of areas without sidewalk within the city currently. So it's a point well taken. Again, we can certainly review that again and bring that back to committee, most definitely.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, and the RFP process.
All right, so I'll run through this fairly quickly, but I did want to, or we did want to bring the board up to speed. Let me recognize Mr. David Walker, who is acting as the procurement lead on this. So he's kind of handling all of the correspondence from potential proposers and things of that nature. We did begin this process August 2nd. That's when the RFP went live for people to request a copy. We tried to make sure we incorporated all of the comments from the RTA, as well as incorporated into the RFP, all the board comments were incorporated where possible. A final contract with awarded company will be determined exact requirements. So again, the RFP is a general description of our scope of services, but certainly the contract is going to be the final document that is most important, because that's what's going to be, ratified between the city as well as our final selected firm. Again, posted several sites here, certainly IPS. We actually put it on some major websites for transit as well, Transit Talent, advertised nationally at APTA, American Public Transportation Association. So far, I'm not sure if this has changed, 12 requests. 12? Up? I don't know the number, but there's a lot. Yeah, so we've received quite a few requests. I think that during the actual meeting, Mr. Walker or myself stated that many times firms that provide support services to management companies will request the RFP so that they know whether they can be part of the actual proposal. So a lot of times that's where that comes from. You get many, many firms that aren't necessarily interested in being the actual management firm, but they're interested in providing software, providing equipment, or support materials that particular firm may use.
And you'd mentioned that you expect about 3 or 4 legitimate proposals.
We'd be very, very happy with 3 or 4. Certainly we have some larger management companies within the U.S., and all of those have requested copies of the proposal, so that's good news. We certainly, the more competition we have, the healthier the process. So we are looking at a review panel for this RFP. We have looked at outside professional transit staff. We did add an internal staff members, you'll see in a moment, as requested by the RTA. We have a diverse group of professionals in administration and transit operations, and a group of 5 to hopefully prevent us from a tie, depending upon how we tabulate that final calculation. But certainly we wanted to make sure that we had an odd number there. And all have agreed to participate. So running through real quick, most of you probably know Ms. Sharon Chavis with our Chief of Staff over at Go Triangle. She has a great history with transportation. 2 years at Go Triangle, has been over at St. Aug, and 14 years at NCDOT as their civil rights manager. Ms. Kelly Blasey, the manager over at Town of Cary for the Go Cary system. She does a great job. I've worked with Kelly many years. She's headed up some statewide procurements when she was actually in Fayetteville. Fayetteville's where I got my start. Ms. Morgan Simmons. So Morgan obviously knows Go Raleigh well. She can bring certainly that internal perspective of she's attended of Go Raleigh in transit, and certainly she'll be a great addition to that process. She's yeah. I was looking at the last bullet there. She's actually served on similar panels before, just to let you know. She's did a similar exercise in Greensboro. And Mr. Byron Brown, principal planner for the city of Winston-Salem. A wide array of experience in transportation, really at MPO level as well as at transit level. And then finally, we have Mr. David Rue. He's our executive director for the North Carolina Public Transportation Association. Mr. Rue works with over 80 transit systems throughout the state. And while he doesn't know anything specific about Go Raleigh's day-to-day operations, he does bring a lot of, or a wealth of information about state level policy, federal policy, and really what types of activities or challenges or transit systems facing across the state. So again, I think that he will bring that kind of a higher view. So we've got kind of a broad range of people in very close to operation positions, and then individuals that can bring more of a statewide perspective of what are the challenges that transit agencies are facing at this time across the state of North Carolina. And so that's our brief presentation. I would, and we can get this out to the board, but we will have a pre-proposal next week, next Wednesday. So that's an opportunity, just like a pre-bid, but it's a pre-proposal where we request proposers to come in, ask questions. We certainly receive those questions in writing or verbally at that meeting. Then we have a deadline to get documented answers back to them as they head towards the finish line and provide their proposals. So again, I'll take any questions, but thank you.
Thank you, David.
David, when is the deadline, and when would this 5-member review panel start looking?
So proposals are due, I'm sorry, I didn't bring the full schedule. September 14th. Yes, the proposals are due September 14th. At that time, we would gather the proposals together, get those to that body. They would review, and then we would, depending upon the number of proposals, we would start setting up our interviews. We do want or historically, we've always done management firm interviews as a second step in the process. At that time, that allows us the opportunity, or the panel the opportunity, to meet the proposed leads of general manager and maintenance manager.
When are we planning on selecting and wrapping it up? What's our time frame?
Certainly, if all goes well, we would like to have this completed by the end of the year.
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the last time we talked about the RFP, we were talking about reviewing it. So I'm assuming that's available to us. Where
Yes.
it's publicly available, or
Yeah, we did send a link to everyone with it, so we should have the final copy.
Okay.
But if not, let us know, and we can provide a link or provide you the document, whatever is most convenient.
Thank you. I thought I saw it, but I've been in and out of email on vacation, so I appreciate that. And then my second question was just information about those interview times and whether or not that we could, obviously the selection committee is the one making the selection, but it would be nice to be able to attend and watch those as audience members and have that information available to us as a board if we choose. Because I think it helps us in terms of understanding how the decision process is moving forward and not just be handed the decision from this outside selection committee.
That's definitely, that's helpful, because that'll help us choose a venue for that particular exercise. So yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. we can certainly make sure that we do, choose a venue that can not only facilitate the interviews, but certainly, others that may want to participate in the audience.
And when we spoke before, you mentioned that the pre-proposal, which is the webinar and all of that on it, will you be sending us out the link and stuff like that for that, so that if we want to attend, we can all attend that as well?
Yeah, that will be at Go Raleigh. So certainly,
At the
yeah.
polling station.
So if any of the board members want to attend that, I mean, that's fine. We'll be in conference room 123. We've met in that conference room many times. So, that's not the biggest conference room in the world. It's not like this, but it's not, it's not small either. So, yeah, but that'll be fine.
And that's only in person, that's not a virtual?
That is correct. That is in person only. And we can, tomorrow, we'll get out that date and time for the full board.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to our last committee, which is the marketing committee with Ms. Karen.
Thank you. And Andrea Epstein, we got a few things to show the board. So,
Hi, Andrea Epstein, Transit Communications. Karen, do you want to go through first, or do you want me to go through the slides that you've asked for?
well, I've got, as you got on the agenda, four things I want to touch on, and we have a slide for each of them. So
Yeah.
the first is, so a lot of good stuff's happening with marketing. The first we wanted to talk about was the BRT, Bus Rapid Transit Virtual Open House that took place this spring. Under COVID, everything was being done virtually. The staff created a website to update the public about kind of where we are on BRT, looking at station design, branding, and specifically the Western Boulevard corridor. We had 2,400 site visits, which is pretty good. We had 3 live Q&A sessions, 3 corridor surveys. The staff worked hard to do additional outreach. They actually mailed information about the open house to 30,000 households, and normally, mailed. Normally, it's been about 15,000, and one of the things they did is they reached out to apartments and people who live in apartments on the potential corridors, which I thought was a great idea. They also held 15 stakeholder meetings and had 10 meetings with downtown businesses. And one of the coolest things they did were putting up polling boards on the corridors, specifically just 3 corridors, Newbern, Western, and the Southern Corridor. And this is what we wanted to show you was here's a polling board that was on Newbern Avenue. And for all 3 corridors, they got over about 300 responses. And so these are actual bus riders, not just people who are, coming in virtually. So we felt like that was some pretty good input, providing feedback on station design, potential use, a lot of questions, asking questions about the somewhat controversial multi-use tracks, particularly on Newbern Avenue. And the thing I wanted to highlight in this slide was that 68% of all the participants who stuck their little stickies on this board on Newbern Avenue said that they intend to ride the BRT, the future BRT, 11 to 20 times per week. 11 to 20 times per week. That's pretty high usage. And 61% said they'd like to walk or bike on the multi-use path that would be on the parallel on the corridor. So while obviously this isn't thousands of people, but these are 300 people who are actually already at the bus shelters. So I thought everyone in our committee felt pretty excited about this. I thought it was a pretty good response, positive response, that there is an interest and a need for it. So let's see. So that was the main thing about reporting in on community input for the BRT. The next thing, and related to it actually, has to do with the future brand for the BRT. And this has been, we're a year into this process of surveys and meetings involving 6 municipalities with their communications teams and marketing experts to really come up with, what are we going to call Bus Rapid Transit, and what's our logo gonna be? And at this point, the name that people are are gonna be using is Go Plus. Go Plus. And the top logo, obviously this is a play on all of the goes, Go Raleigh, Go Triangle, et cetera, with the colors being a little closer to Go Raleigh than anybody else, but the orange and yellow are unique. It's not green of Go Triangle, it's not light blue of Go Chapel Hill, et cetera. So this is, the next steps are to, finalize the brand recommendations and guidelines and continue working with the branding technical committee. So, one of the things we talked about at our committee was at the right time in the future, when we're ready to kind of announce the name of the system and the brand, that we have some kind of event. So and I didn't know if anyone, or Andrea, if you had any input or any on kind of how they arrived at Go Plus as a concept.
So the core technical team that's working on this includes staff from City of Raleigh, Town of Cary, Garner, Go Triangle, Campo, and Wake County. So everybody that has stake in this through the Wake Transit Plan and who will also be receiving BRT. And like Karen said, the whole group together thought kind of a new look to the Go brand we already have, since it will tie into the whole system. So right here, what you see are the top 3 that were selected from the survey that went out on the virtual open house, that just under 400 people have voted on and seen out of the 6 options given.
I have a question. So is the BRT not a Go Raleigh product?
BRT is a Wake Transit Plan, so it will be going to Garner and to Cary.
Well, I know where it's going, but I'm saying, like, is it not our product? So it seems like Go Raleigh staff has been planning it. It's not our thing. Okay, cool, thank you.
It's not, we're managing it and
We're the
running it.
lead for BRT, but again, it's system-wide throughout Wake.
Okay.
So that was why the desire to or the thinking that it should have a unique name.
Right.
But also connected to
All the
the
other
other
Go's.
systems. So the little triangles and the Go obviously connect.
I believe it's also part of federal funding. You have to have a separate brand for BRT.
Oh, I didn't realize that, so.
But I get your confusion because we don't have a regional or even a county-wide transit authority to really manage this, so Go Raleigh's responsible for it, but not really taking credit for
I
it.
was just thinking in the branding that it should maybe be a little more Go Raleigh leaning.
Yeah.
Maybe be red.
Yeah, it could be a little more Go Raleigh leaning in the branding of it, because I feel like, people would see it and be like, but internally, that's
Yeah.
probably my confusion.
For branding, and I'm just gonna get on a small little soapbox. I personally feel like we shouldn't name the stations the street names. I think they should have like actual, like, say we're Avon Ferry in Western Air, it's like Avon Hill or something, so that it's a unique kind of name. And I think that it makes it feel much more like a line, like a subway or a light rail or something like that, if there's actually a name to the station rather than just like Avon Ferry and Western. Additionally, in Mexico City, each station has its own logo, because when they designed the stations, the population, the literacy level in the population was not super high. While the literacy level in Raleigh is pretty high, I think that for those who do struggle with literacy, or who are kids and maybe not reading, I think having individual icons for each station is, while yes, a lot of work, cool, and increases excitement, at least in kids, and accessibility for everyone. So things that I would like to see as our branding for that. Additionally, I have questions about will each, like we're having this orange color, will each line have its own unique color, or will the whole system just be one?
The whole BRT system would be one.
That
Don't
seems
love
confusing.
That, but,
Yeah, that seems very confusing, actually.
Like, I
Because
don't
even if you
mind
did
it,
Go Plus, like if this is the New Bern Avenue corridor, it could be orange, and then Western would be a different color, and then Capitol a different color, so people know the difference. It helps them when they get on their buses.
Right.
They know which.
and I think that helps the design, again, it be more like, hey, this is a light rail or a subway type design if we have colors
Yeah.
for each.
Somebody can say, I'm taking the
Personally
orange
disagree.
line.
Yeah,
Disagree.
especially since our ridership specifically needs to be available, or our signage needs to be available to the lowest level of readership, that if we name it like A, B, or C, or D, that could cause confusion within its own. What I don't want is someone to get on a BRT bus meaning to go down Western and end up in Garner. And that would be really terrible, whether it's someone who's going to a job or a tourist that we really want their money.
Wait, so are you saying you want them to each be their own color, or you don't want them to be?
No, it's each, some identifying mark
Yeah.
to make sure that everyone understands that's not a letter, because letters can be very confusing and also
Right.
set a certain standard of literacy.
And we can do like orange, yellow, like,
Purple, green, yeah, like the green line, the blue line, the purple line type of thing.
yeah, but we're like even keeping it within like that yellow kind of family,
Oh, yeah.
right? Or your orange kind of
I feel
thing.
like
What
this
about
is
people who are
half a route
colorblind?
conversation and half a marketing
what-
conversation, because I also feel like I've heard a community feedback about confusion as to whether you will one day be able to ride all the way from east to west and all the way from north to south, and what the crap is happening in between, I think is still a really big question mark, even for the people on this board. And so I think like marketing correctly what's happening in between is important, but, and I agree with your points about making sure it's clear, but I think that we're not sure which of those things will be the case. And so making it one color or making it four separate colors or making it two different colors, it's hard to make a call or discussion around, because at least personally, I don't fully have a picture of which direction we're headed and how it would function from a rider perspective.
I agree. I think that that's something that we need to very much analyze. But I think we set ourselves up for confusion, even more confusion, if they all look the same, and people have
I
to
mean, I would be for
read-
there being one color and then being labeled north, south, east, and west, and I don't have to know which road I'm on.
Well,
but-
yeah,
I'm
definitely.
gonna interrupt.
Geographically has
Y'all-
been proven
Also,
to
that
not work
also
well.
actually, I mean, talking about literacy and direction, that also makes it, makes the assumption that the people getting on the bus know they're going east or know they're going
I'm just
north.
going to interrupt here because we're getting off the brand of the BRT, and we're getting into the route discussion, and there will be future meetings and conversation working with staff on each of what we're now calling the western, southern, et cetera. But I also want to point out, unfortunately, we don't really have a say about the brand. We are not on the committee. We are represented by all the staff from 6 municipalities and their communications folks and marketing folks, and also public input. So you may have provided input on the survey, or you might not have, but we don't actually get a vote. Which I'm a, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I was
mean,
just gonna
I'm
say.
talking about RTA doesn't really
Yeah.
get a vote, and so I'm a little disappointed about that, but I really am here to report that that is really where we're headed.
And staff does
And
have.
the idea that,
Sorry.
eventually, we're not gonna call this bus rapid transit, we're gonna call it Go Plus. And yes, there are gonna be different lines, and I presume, it's my understanding that the consultants and staff are gonna be talking more about how we're gonna name the lines, and I think it would be great if the route committee had some input in that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Just to clarify, we as the RTA definitely don't have a vote, but staff has the ability, if we need to, and I specifically, your comment about Go Raleigh having power in this. In the TPAC, if we have to, we can have a population vote. So because Go Raleigh has the largest population in all this, the weight of the votes can be heavier should we use that? We have not
But are
done
you-
that.
Are you, am I hearing that people don't like Go Plus as a brand?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because that's really what we're talking about
Yeah.
right this minute, is the brand for the
Sorry,
system.
I was confusing things.
Yeah. And if people really hate it, then we should, I think, yeah, we could try to speak up, but that's really what the discussion is on the table right now. And I'm presuming, since I wasn't at any of the meetings, that the concept is that this is gonna be, it's part of the Go system, but it's extra, you know, because it's faster, and the plus is supposed to make you think of, it's better than traditional transit.
I mean, to that specific question, I think personally, I feel good about the Go Plus. Like, I think it's simple and easy to understand that it's faster and better and cooler than the regular Go buses. I do think that a serious conversation about the line name specifically around like Go Plus and what needs to happen, because I think it becomes a lot of words. But anything that you do in branding is all about the number of words. So I assume that there's some thought to that, and I just think it would be good to get a report back through marketing or through to the whole RTA about how this brand starts to play out in those extra layers that we're talking about. And then I don't know, Tulupe, if you were thinking it should be red instead of orange, or if that's worth forcing a vote over.
I like the idea of it being red, but or like you said, some variation of it that's a little closer to Go Raleigh, so that it
Well,
shows
of all the colors, it's not light blue and it's not dark blue, it's not green. I mean, we have some orange already in our logo, as well as red. So it's I will say it's the closest to of our colors than anything else. And I did notice in the lobby of the offices and the meeting room of Go Raleigh, at Raleigh Union Station, that everything is orange. And I don't know if that was on purpose.
I mean, I drive an orange car. I'm cool with an orange.
I'm not against it.
Okay, so anyhow, we'll keep, I guess, I'm assuming staff is hearing that we would love to have some conversation or some input into the naming of the lines. And everything,
Yes,
so.
we have all of that, and the correct folks have heard you. Thank
Okay.
you.
So, okay, the next up is, there is a really special event on August 21st. It's not just about transit, but the city is hosting what's called they're calling the Go Green event. And it's Saturday, August 21st at Dix Park at the Dix Chapel from 10 a.m. to noon. And it's really just to be highlighting all the ways you can kind of transport yourself in a green, sustainable way throughout the city. And they're gonna be highlighting the citrus cycles, our new electric buses, of which there are 5. Also, they'll be showcasing our CNG buses, and there'll be people there from the Office of Sustainability, and even the folks with water and public. What's the word I'm forgetting now?
Raleigh Water.
Thank you, Raleigh Water, and
So they're gonna come to
Public
talk
Works, how we're going to
Yeah.
be eventually using collecting the energy from the biogas from our water treatment plants, and that'll be fueling the CNG buses. So it's really just a kind of a really positive green event. So I really encourage everybody to come. It'll be kind of festival-like activities for kids and stuff.
We do have a few additions since we last met.
Oh, yeah?
So Campo will be joining us, planning will be joining us, Raleigh Police and Raleigh Fire will also be joining. For example, police will be talking about bike safety, that they do trainings for kids. Since we'll have the citric cycles there, we're gonna have a sustainability panel. So a bunch of different activities going on. We will be providing a bus service from Go Raleigh Station to the event every 15 minutes throughout the event. So it's getting bigger since we last met.
Is there a flyer for it?
Yeah, I can send all the information. Yep.
And they have been sending it out on social, and also they and this is part of our update on our Wake Transit Plan ads. one of our ads for our Building Ridership campaign is our Tri-Transit radio spots on Mondays, Tri-Transit Mondays, on 101.5 and 99.9, and we're doing PR for this event with that. So anyhow, I really hope everybody will come. That'll be fun. And then the last thing I want to talk about is, as you know, we had conversations before about a marketing.
It's Transit Monday on Mix 101.5. Commute smart by
It's
choosing
Transit
Go Raleigh.
Monday.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Oh, sorry. What have I done?
Well, we did want to show
Okay,
that.
there we go. Sorry about that.
Good. We,
We're all asleep. Woke us up.
last year, we had approved a ad campaign to help build ridership across the board, and we put it on hold because of COVID, and we restarted it in July.
July 1.
And the goal really is just to, as I said, it's about building ridership, reaching out, not just to our current riders, but new riders. It's a year-long campaign for ads. It includes print ads, radio ads, and 6 billboards. There's the Tri-Transit Monday radio ads, but also, like in the current issue of the Raleigh magazine, the last page, hard cover is a really cool ad of the green boot. And the goal of all these ads really is to bring people to our Go Raleigh website. And this is some good news. So the web statistics from last year of July of 2019, that website hits are up 59.9%. And just from June are up 26.25%. So the ad campaign is working. It's increasing awareness. And based on everyone's really good recommendations from our meeting 2 months ago about updating our messages to make them really relevant to public health and today, and the fact that we have suspended fares, and that people are really thinking a lot about climate change, like the UN climate report just came out this week. Those messages are being incorporated, particularly into the radio ads. So this is one of the ads that Andrea's going to play for us. Or did we have 2 of them? Actually 2.
If I get it right this time.
It's Transit Monday on Mix 101.5. Commute smart by choosing Go Raleigh. Nothing is smarter than free. Go Raleigh has suspended fares so you can get where you're going for free. There's no better time to try the bus. Visit goraleigh.org to find your route today.
And here's the next one.
It's Transit Monday on 99.9 The Fan. Commute smart by choosing Go Raleigh. Their compressed natural gas buses are better for the environment and safer than ever to ride with their super sanitation practices. Plus, Go Raleigh has suspended fares so you can get where you want to go for free. Visit goraleigh.org.
Comments? Questions?
I have a
that
segue
was
question,
great.
but I think the ads sound good.
I heard one on the radio, so.
You did? Cool. Great. My daughter really liked the green boot ad.
Oh, good. Thank you all. I appreciate the feedback. Quickly with the Go Green, the committee had recommended us do some advertising as well in Spanish. So I want you all to know we have confirmed that, and it will start running for a full week this Saturday with K Pasa.
I have just one other question on the Go
Yes.
Green, I'm sorry. I heard you say you're running a special bus from Go Raleigh Station?
Yes.
Or is that the Carolee?
No, special.
All
So-
straight to the chapel?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have to walk up the hill.
I guess that is newly confirmed because I hadn't seen that in any of the
Yes,
event
you're
advertisements so
correct.
far.
That went up today.
Okay, cool. I think it would be really good to do some targeted social media in the same way that Citrix Cycle is doing about getting a bike to go there. I think we should do the same about taking the bus to go there because Josh can attest to this on our little side of town. We know we can't take the bus to Dick's. And so it would be nice to tell people like today, this time you can take the bus to get here.
We definitely will. Thank you.
Do you, speaking in that same thing, do attendees get anything special for coming via bike or bus or walking as opposed to a car, it being a Go Green event?
No, you still get a red Go Raleigh cup.
Okay.
We should not give them to the people that drive.
Sorry.
No, but we should also put the bus, to your Spanish point, I think, the neighborhood immediately across from Dick's is majority Hispanic, and what we've been talking about in the Dick's Edge study has a Spanish-speaking ambassador that's already going door to door over the next 2 weeks to do some advertising for the Dick's Edge study. So it may also be an opportunity to cross-advertise for that event as well.
I'll talk to them, because that is the group that's actually coming for planning to the event. And then we also have somebody from planning on the panel to talk about the importance of sustainability and transportation.
Yeah, I know some of us committee members are hanging doors, and I think the ambassadors, including the one that speaks Spanish, is doing the same. So it could be helpful.
Yeah,
in
I'll
that
reach
regard.
out to them so they know that we're doing that as well.
And I just want to conclude in saying that I think we cannot undervalue the importance of marketing and community outreach, because as we are ramping up any of the things we're talking about at this table today, whether it's, the bus pedestals or, the new Glenwood increased frequency, we can't, if people don't know about it, it becomes meaningless. And so I really appreciate all the work that Andrea and her team is doing, and then the consultants are doing as well, and that we've got a lot more to do, and I'm excited about talking about that at the retreat. And by the way, while I'm saying, I'll send you an email, but I was thinking, we mentioned a couple new things today, like about the new increased frequency on Glenwood starting in the Glenwood route starting in September, and that the R line will be up for the IBMA, and after that, and even that we're going to start installing these benches, that those are all great things to do publicity on. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
We will be doing that. Glenwood, we've gotten very good responses the first 2 times we've gone out, so we will highly push that, since again the feedback was really good and the want was very high.
And I'm wondering if it might be worth reaching out to try to get us an article in the newspaper or something about new bus service in September between the Glenwood route and the R line, and even, maybe even incorporating about the bus pedestals. That everyone always wants to talk about our lack of bus shelters, but there's a lot of good stuff happening too. And some, starting with the fall, so.
I have 2 questions. Are we missing an opportunity to advertise by not having Go Raleigh sanitary masks as swag to give out?
Oh, you mean like face
Yeah,
masks?
like, are we missing an opportunity
masks?
by not making Go Raleigh masks with our website on it? We're giving
I'd
out.
wear one.
Yeah, I mean, I wear one,
That's actually, I really like that.
and it's something good for our ridership, something we can pass out at the Go Green events, the different events we're
Which would be
doing.
more useful than a plastic cup.
Yes.
Go Raleigh what?
The plastic
Raleigh
cup
mask.
is
Oh,
reusable.
yeah.
So I
We
think
have, well, I'll look into that. Yeah, that should be available and easy to do. Just a reminder, we did do the lanyards at one point in hopes to have people remember their masks. So I think that could be very easy and doable.
yeah, I think that it serves multiple purposes.
I love the mask idea.
The other thing is, since we're advertising clean buses, and it reminded me of what we talked about at our last meeting, we had our buses inspected to make sure that they are clean, and that was not, it's not an ongoing thing. I
I
just don't want us to advertise it and
I've
when people get on the
heard
bus.
I heard from someone, from a driver, that there was an inspection, but the outside firm was brought in to clean before
The inspection.
the inspection, which is somewhat frustrating. That is not being done on a regular
I
basis.
think somebody else can speak to that. Is that the bus that just sits on the lot and doesn't get used that somebody was concerned about?
No.
I don't know. I
It
don't think
was
so.
other
I think
buses,
it
but we're
was
just
an
talking about while we're
out-of-service.
advertising sanitation, it was a conversation at our last meeting.
I thought it was the out-of-service bus. I'm sorry, I'm not the expert. Thank you though for all the marketing ideas and listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
No? What's happening?
Are we,
I didn't know if there were still a pending question.
No, that's it.
Okay.
No, it hasn't been answered.
Yeah, we're
There
waiting
is
for the
still a
answer.
pending question, there's no answer.
Have the buses been inspected?
So they have been inspected, and the reference to cleaning the buses is that wasn't something bringing out an outside firm before inspection. That is actually an ongoing effort to provide 2 layers of cleaning for the buses. So just to make that clarification,
So that's a regular thing?
that is ongoing. We'll get
I mean,
Brian up here to provide full clarification.
I'm just trying to make sure that we're not, hiring the maid across the street before our mother
It's
inspects
not
our-
a one-time quick deal to get something done fast for quick inspection. This is an ongoing effort. But
So prior to the issue being brought up at the last board meeting, I had been in contact with contractors about doing just that, getting the buses at a deeper level of clean. That did commence on July 18th. I don't know what inspection you're referring to, but the buses are cleaned each evening. It's not a show up and clean for the inspection and then not be cleaned after that.
How
I'm not
frequently?
really sure what the question was related to.
How frequently are the buses being cleaned? Especially
Every
when we have a
evening.
new variant, like
Every
are you
evening.
all, I'm sorry,
Every day, every evening,
once a day?
yes.
All the buses are being cleaned once a day?
All the buses that go in service are cleaned
All
once
the
a
buses
day.
are in service are being cleaned once a day?
Correct. So a bus is cleaned each time it returns to the facility.
Okay. Thank you. All right, are there any other questions? On anything that we've discussed? All right, thank you for another great Transit Authority meeting. I think we got a lot accomplished. I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the retreat next month. So we'll call this meeting to close at 5:25 on August 12th. Thank you.